Ever been in a situation where, I don't know, you just feel like you're speaking a totally different language than someone else?
Oh, absolutely. Like maybe with your manager or even trying to explain something simple to a colleague, and it's just.
Yeah, it just isn't landing. We've all been there, right? And turns out those moments might be more connected than we realize.
Well, what's interesting is that those disconnects, whether they happen in a big meeting or just a casual chat, they often trace back to some really fundamental ideas about how we actually understand each other and
Yeah,
communicate.
exactly. And for this deep dive, we found some really quite insightful stuff from nurturing leadership, learning from parenting,
Mm.
specifically chapter 1.
Hmm.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, like, parenting? Seriously, what's that got to do with leading my team?
Right. It sounds a bit strange at first.
It does, but the basic idea in this book that the way parents, effectively teach and guide kids actually offers really valuable lessons for work stuff, for communication, leadership. It's genuinely eye-opening when you dig into it.
Yeah, the author really connects the dots. They make a strong case that if you look at how parents help kids make sense of the world, like the real basics,
Uh-huh.
supervisors can get these powerful insights into, well, better communication, better management. It's not about treating adults like kids, obviously.
Not at all.
It's more about tapping into these like universal truths about how knowledge gets transferred and how we explain things so that they actually, stick.
So our mission today, really, is to pull out the most actionable bits for you.
Hmm.
We want to shed some light on why those communication breakdowns happen
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully give you some concrete ways to uh, communicate better, understand where people are coming from, and, help foster learning and growth in anyone you work with or lead.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in. So one of the first big ideas that really jumped out was about questioning our assumptions.
Right. And they frame critical thinking as critical reasoning ability. It's not just surface stuff. It's really analyzing the foundations of why we think what we think. The book really stresses how vital it is to keep reevaluating those assumptions. The ones about why we succeeded in the past or how we understand things right now.
Because things change so fast.
Exactly. And there's research showing that the more expert you become, the harder it actually gets to question your own core assumptions.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, you look for things that fit what you already believe.
Precisely. Which is why actively seeking out different perspectives becomes even more critical, especially the higher up you go.
That makes total sense. I mean, just because something worked great last year or even last quarter
Right.
doesn't mean it's the right approach now. Market conditions shift, technology disrupts everything. Clinging to old ways of thinking is, well, it's a real risk. It can kill innovation.
So it kind of forces you to ask, how often do we really challenge our own foundational beliefs? Properly challenge them?
Probably not often enough.
And the book highlights that bringing in diverse perspectives is just absolutely key here. Listening to different viewpoints, really considering them.
That's how you spot your own blind spots. You end up with, more innovative, more robust solutions, especially in teams.
It can be tough, though, can't it? Psychologically, I mean. Questioning stuff you've believed for a long time feels uncomfortable. We like stability.
Oh, for sure. But the book suggests it's about finding that balance, being skeptical, but also staying open to new information, new ideas.
So healthy skepticism, but not just shutting down anything new.
Exactly. And that's where self-awareness really comes in. You have to understand your own guiding assumptions first.
Right. How do you do that?
Well, the book suggests things like carving out time for reflection, just thinking about your thinking patterns,
Mhm.
and actively asking for feedback from others.
Yeah.
Plus, just talking to people with different backgrounds, different ways of thinking that can really broaden your perspective and help you see your own assumptions more clearly.
Okay, so building on that idea of knowing our own perspective, this is where it gets really interesting. The book shifts to recognizing that the people we lead,
Yeah.
especially if they're new or less experienced,
Yeah.
they're often starting from what the book calls a blank slate.
Ah, the blank slate idea. Yeah, that's a powerful mindset shift. Because managers, often without meaning to, kind of assume that new hires or people in new roles,
Hmm.
they assume they already have a certain baseline understanding based on the manager's own experience, right?
Projecting their own knowledge.
But the book argues that's a huge source of mistakes and misunderstandings, like assuming a kid just knows the rules of Monopoly without anyone explaining them.
Exactly, like expecting someone to just magically grasp complex stuff with no background.
Yeah.
But the book also flips that idea, doesn't it? That the blank slate isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all. It's actually a huge opportunity for learning because someone new isn't weighed down by, preconceived ideas or maybe old inefficient ways of doing
It's
things.
more receptive.
Absolutely. Super receptive to new knowledge, new skills. So the responsibility then lands squarely on the manager to consciously, clearly fill that slate. And that means explaining not just what needs doing, but the really crucial why behind it, how it fits into the bigger picture. That's what fosters real independent growth.
So if you're explaining, say, a complex project to someone new,
Yeah.
you can't just jump into the weeds, the tiny details. You got to lay the groundwork first.
Yeah.
The background, the main goals, why it matters strategically.
Step by step. Build that understanding, which in turn builds their confidence.
And it's not just the technical job stuff either, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. New people need clear, explicit guidance on all the unspoken stuff, too.
Like the culture.
Yeah, the organizational culture, how people communicate around here, how things really get done. If instructions are vague or that stuff isn't clear,
Yeah.
it just leads to anxiety, lower performance, people feeling lost. Clear expectations right from the start, that's fundamental for confidence and success.
And, this whole act of consciously teaching, really explaining things thoroughly to someone who's like a blank slate, it actually benefits the manager too.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely. There's a huge self-growth opportunity there. When you have to break down what you know and explain it simply to someone new,
Yeah.
it forces you to re-examine your own understanding on a much deeper level. You actually sharpen your own thinking, your own communication skills.
Huh. That's interesting. You find your own gaps sometimes.
Exactly. You gain new insights into your own assumptions just by having to articulate them.
And bringing someone new onto a team
Yeah.
that can shake things up a bit too for the existing dynamic.
Yeah, connecting this to the bigger picture, that blank slate newcomer can definitely impact how the team already communicates, how workflows run.
So you need systems.
Right. Having clear ways to share knowledge, actively encouraging experienced folks to mentor the new person, that builds a culture of understanding, makes the whole team stronger. And like we said, giving good, timely feedback to that person in the blank slate phase, that's absolutely essential for their development. And it directly feeds into the organization's long-term success.
Okay, so we've got questioning assumptions, recognizing the blank slate. Now, the book dives into building foundational knowledge, and this is where those parenting parallels really shine.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how much it emphasizes building understanding piece by piece, tailoring it to where the person is now.
Like how parents teach language.
Exactly. You start with simple words, then phrases, then sentences. You don't dump the whole dictionary on them.
Right.
The workplace version is starting with the big picture, the main goals, before diving into all the complex details of a project.
And you have to know where the learner is starting from. Not everyone has the same background, the same expertise. You got to be flexible.
Adaptable, yeah. Introduce new stuff gradually. Let them build a solid base step by step instead of just, overwhelming them.
And just like with kids, teaching something once isn't enough, is it?
Not even close. Repetition, review, absolutely crucial for knowledge to stick in the workplace, too. Leaders need to provide chances for reinforcement, check progress, be ready to go over key things again to make sure it's more than just surface-level understanding.
It really shows respect for your team, doesn't it? Guiding them at their pace, not rushing, giving support. It's an investment in their long-term growth, not just hitting this week's target.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, prioritizing that kind of foundational learning, it actually shapes the whole company culture.
How so?
It fosters this mindset of continuous learning, continuous development, instead of just focusing purely on immediate results. That kind of culture is way more adaptable, more resilient when things change.
Which they always do.
Right. It impacts long-term competitiveness. And leaders themselves need to model that. Always learning, always refining how they teach and explain things.
Now, here's something interesting. The book says effective knowledge transfer isn't just about, dumping information on someone.
No. What's really vital is creating space for them to think independently, to apply it. Don't just say, do it exactly like this. Take the time to explain why this way is important and how it might apply in different situations. That empowers people to develop their own problem-solving skills, to keep learning long after you've explained it.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, on the flip side of explaining things well, the book really hammers home the risks, the negative consequences when you don't explain things enough. And it sounds pretty serious.
Oh, the ramifications are huge. They impact individuals, sure, but also the whole organization's health and productivity. It's like a domino effect, misunderstandings, confusion,
Yeah.
leading to lower efficiency, and even like a breakdown of trust within the team.
Right. If the project goals are fuzzy or how to do a task isn't clear, people just struggle. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. That leads to mistakes, failures.
Wasted resources, delayed projects.
It goes beyond just messing up tasks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When communication from leadership isn't clear, it can create real anxiety, a big dip in motivation. People start doubting themselves, their own abilities. And if there's no clear guidance, no good feedback, which often starts with poor explanation, trust just erodes, morale goes down. It's this vicious cycle of inefficiency.
And it kills innovation, too.
Yeah.
If people don't get the why behind what they're doing,
Yeah.
they're way less likely to think outside the box or suggest better ways. They just stick to what they know, even if it's not working that well.
Exactly. Lack of clarity keeps people stuck in old frameworks. They can't see new possibilities. And individually, starting a new job with unclear expectations, that's incredibly stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Leads to lower job satisfaction, more stress, and, people leaving. Losing good people because of bad communication, that's a huge costly loss.
And it can even mess up relationships outside the company.
Totally. Connecting this to the bigger picture, if you're not clear with clients or partners, you get these big gaps in expectations. Trust breaks down,
Right.
you could face business risks, maybe even legal problems down the road.
Yikes. Okay, so how do we avoid all that? What are the solutions?
Well, the book really pushes for proactively checking your audience's understanding, tailoring how you explain things, fostering real two-way communication where questions aren't just allowed, they're encouraged.
Actively encourage.
Yeah. And doing things like post-explanation checks, asking for a quick summary in their own words, maybe a quick quiz, providing written resources helps too. Basically, investing the time in clear explanation is just foundational for healthy growth.
Okay, so it's clearly not enough to just bark orders.
Yeah.
The book really stresses explaining the background, the reasoning.
Absolutely crucial. Communicating not just the tasks, but the why, the purpose, the strategy behind it. Without that context, tasks just feel random, meaningless.
Yeah, like busy work.
Which leads to misaligned results, wasted resources. It's huge.
It's about painting that big picture, right?
Right.
Sharing the vision, where the team, where the company is going. That creates a shared sense of purpose. Helps everyone see how their little piece fits.
Exactly. Like telling a sales team increase revenue is one thing.
Mm.
But explaining why that growth is critical now, how it connects to the company's long-term strategy, that's what motivates people, gets them thinking strategically.
And when you consistently explain the background, the rationale, it helps people think for themselves more.
Yeah, it actively fosters independent thinking. Instead of just passively following orders, they get the context. That empowers them to handle challenges more flexibly, make proactive, informed decisions on their own.
So they're not just executors,
They become autonomous, engaged team members. It's a fundamental shift.
and that's got to be a big boost for morale, for motivation too.
Huge. When objectives are unclear, motivation just tanks. People want their work to mean something, right? To contribute to something bigger.
Yeah.
When everyone gets the shared goals, the strategy, it translates directly into better efficiency, better outcomes. Think about marketing and sales alignment. If they both understand the why of the campaign, they work together way better, get better results.
Now here's something interesting. The book says giving context actually speeds up decision-making.
Yeah, because when team members really grasp the why, they're much better equipped to make good decisions independently, quickly. Things move faster, you can respond to challenges more agilely. Plus, explaining the background is crucial for developing your people. It builds their long-term skills, nurtures future leaders, and it strengthens trust between leaders and teams.
And if that context is missing, it can mess up team communication pretty badly.
Totally. Lack of shared understanding means one person's actions might accidentally block someone else. But when everyone gets the rationale, the big picture, proactive problem solving just happens more naturally, more effectively. Like on a manufacturing line, if everyone understands the why behind quality standards, they're more likely to spot and fix issues themselves.
Makes sense.
And like we said before, taking time to explain the background, it's good for the leader too. Clarifies your own thinking, hones your communication skills.
Okay, let's talk about those moments when you encounter, unfamiliar words or concepts. It can be instantly confusing.
Oh yeah, that initial feeling of confusion, maybe even a little anxiety, It's a totally natural human thing. Our brains are trying to connect the new stuff to what we already know.
Yeah.
And if there's no obvious link, it feels unsettling, hard to process.
Like being dropped into a conversation full of super technical jargon you've never heard. Your brain just kind of freezes.
Right. The book really emphasizes giving that foundational knowledge, that background info first to kind of ease people in and bridge that gap.
And there's a psychological thing too, right? Cognitive dissonance.
Exactly. When new info clashes with our existing mental map, it creates this tension. We often try to resolve it by just resisting the new info.
Like when a company tries a radical new business model.
Perfect example. Longtime employees might resist just because it's unfamiliar. It challenges how they've always understood things. Overcoming that takes support, clear explanations, and just giving people time to process it.
The book mentions opportunity cost as an example.
Mm.
You need some basic economics to really get it. And culture can make it even trickier.
Absolutely. A term deeply rooted in one culture might have no easy equivalent in another. That's why jargon in meetings is so problematic if not everyone shares that language.
Yeah.
Taking the time to clearly explain any new or potentially confusing terms, especially with new initiatives, is just crucial for everyone to be on the same page.
But that initial confusion, uncomfortable as it is, can actually be a good thing sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. While it feels weird at first, bumping into unfamiliar concepts can be a powerful trigger for learning, for growth. Actively trying to understand and fit in that new info expands our knowledge, makes us think harder.
Especially in fast-moving fields like tech or marketing.
Oh, yeah. New terms pop up constantly. AI-driven this, blockchain that. Adapting and understanding that new language is key for long-term success. But leaders have to proactively explain why these new concepts matter, especially to people who might be resistant.
So it takes effort.
It does. Overcoming that confusion often needs continuous learning, seeing the terms used in different ways, and having a supportive place where it's okay to ask, wait, what does that actually mean?
Okay, so intuition isn't enough. The book makes a really strong case that neither kids learning nor subordinates at work can just understand things by instinct.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway. Relying only on intuition, even if you mean well, just doesn't cut it for real lasting understanding. You absolutely need context, logic, and clear, explicit explanations to bridge that knowledge gap.
Right, just saying do this without a why, without explaining the value.
It falls flat, can even create resentment. Think about telling a kid, do your homework versus explaining what they'll learn and why it's useful. Totally different engagement.
And at work, telling a new person to just figure it out. Not usually helpful or supportive.
No. Deeper understanding comes from connecting new information to what someone already knows. But that connection requires clear foundational explanations. Acting on intuition alone, without that grounding, much more likely to go wrong.
So, repetition, examples, feedback.
Critical. It's about intentionally building a structured understanding, not just throwing out isolated facts or commands.
Now, here's something interesting. The book says lack of clarity, poor explanation, can really hit someone's confidence.
Exactly. If people don't get clear instructions or the reasoning behind them, they start wondering, am I doing this right? Am I making good decisions?
Yeah, that uncertainty.
Providing clear info, solid reasons that builds a foundation for confident, autonomous action. But when it's murky and people make mistakes because they didn't understand, that erodes confidence even further. Focusing on thorough explanation shows you value their learning, and it builds that trust for more open communication.
Okay, let's get into something we all kind of know is vital for learning, repetition and practice.
Yeah, it's absolutely key. New stuff rarely sticks after you hear it just once. Repetition, actually using the knowledge that's essential for it to become ingrained, accessible.
That Ebbinghaus forgetting curve thing, right? We forget stuff super fast if we don't review it.
Exactly. Think about learning an instrument or a language. You can't just have one lesson and be done. Constant repetition, active practice is non-negotiable.
And it's not just memorizing facts, it's about actually doing it.
Precisely. Real understanding comes from practicing, turning theory into actual skills. Like coding, you can memorize syntax, but until you write code, debug it.
You don't really know it.
Right, and that's true everywhere. Repetition, tackling different kinds of problems, vital in school, vital in workplace training, a one-off training session, usually not enough without ongoing reinforcement, chances to use it on the job.
The book mentions imagining how you'd apply it to. That helps it stick.
Yeah, actively engaging with it, visualizing its use in real situations, experiential learning, like Dewey talked about learning by doing. In leadership training, maybe role-playing difficult conversations and getting feedback.
So the environment matters too.
Hugely. A supportive place with chances to practice, get feedback, review, crucial for retention. And repetition builds flexibility too, being able to apply knowledge in different, unexpected ways.
And this fits with how memory works, neurologically.
Absolutely. Repetition helps move info from short-term to long-term memory, like studying for exams you review repeatedly, and getting feedback during that practice is indispensable. Correcting mistakes, making sure it's internalized correctly,
Mm.
and of course, motivation plays a big part. If the learning is engaging, relevant, the repetition feels less like a chore and works better.
Okay, now here's a big one. A common trap.
Yeah.
The assumption that, oh, they get it, don't they?
Ah, yes. That unconscious assumption that other people just understand things the way we do. It's so common, but so problematic.
Yeah.
It leads to skipping crucial explanations, which then leads to misunderstandings, errors, especially with managers giving instructions or explaining projects.
And it happens outside work too, right?
Yeah.
In relationships, they should just know. Or
Yeah.
teachers assuming students have background knowledge they might not.
Exactly. It's pervasive. And it definitely happens in business, rolling out new projects, new software. Assumptions get made.
Cultural factors can play into it too, like
Yeah.
that Japanese idea of reading the air.
Yeah, Sasuru. Relying on implicit understanding, but relying on assumptions without checking. It's risky anywhere. Leads to avoidable mistakes, frustration, communication breakdowns.
So how do we stop falling into that trap?
Well, actively talking about it, explicitly confirming understanding, asking open-ended questions, really listening. Get them to explain it back in their own words.
Okay.
When explaining something complex or onboarding someone, just assume they have zero prior knowledge. Start from scratch and watch the nonverbal cues, the confused looks, the body language. They often tell you more than words.
And kind of related to assuming understanding is assuming other people can just do what you can do.
Right, another risky one. Assuming others have your exact skills, your knowledge, your experience, like an experienced manager underestimating how hard a task actually is for a junior person.
Or teachers expecting students to grasp things as easily as they do. Or parents projecting onto their kids.
Yeah, it happens everywhere. It really shows that cognitive bias, using our own experience as the default ruler for everyone else.
And again, cultural factors might influence this too.
For sure. And this assumption leads to setting unrealistic expectations, not giving enough support or guidance, which holds back learning growth both for the individual and the organization.
And it damages trust, communication, when people feel set up to fail.
Exactly. So the key is a conscious effort to consider the other person's perspective, their current skill level. Give tailored support, give feedback, watch for signs they're struggling. Don't project your own expertise onto them.
Okay, the book also talks about feedback, drawing lessons from parent-child dynamics again.
Yeah, it highlights the critical role parental feedback plays in a child's self-awareness, their skill development. And good feedback is way more than just praise or criticism.
How so?
It's about guiding kids to learn how to evaluate themselves. How engaged parents are with feedback deeply impacts a child's self-esteem, their confidence to try hard things.
That's how you learn from failure, right? Build resilience,
So-
and timing matters.
Hugely. Feedback right after the event, much more effective. And constructive feedback deepens communication, builds trust. Being specific is way better than vague comments. When parents are actively involved, the feedback is more relevant, more impactful. It teaches self-assessment skills, fosters patience, perseverance by focusing on the process, not just the result.
And finally, a really crucial point the book raises. Don't impose your own standards on others.
Yeah, this is so important. Rigidly forcing your personal standards, your preferred methods, onto other people. It stifles their thinking, hinders their growth, often leads to lower performance, less motivation.
Like the manager who insists everyone does it their way,
Mhm.
or the teacher who only values one learning style.
Exactly, because everyone's different. Different values, experiences, perspectives. A single approach just doesn't work for everyone.
And it makes teams less flexible, right? Less adaptable. Can also make giving good feedback harder.
Precisely. Leaders really need to work on seeing things from the other person's viewpoint, appreciating that there are usually multiple good ways to reach a goal. Real leadership is about facilitating input, empowering different ways of thinking.
Not just enforcing your own view.
Right.
So, as leaders, how do we get better at spotting those signs that maybe someone isn't quite getting it?
Well, it's about developing that keen awareness for the early signals, like silence in meetings when you expect input, or really vague responses,
Okay.
or someone being overly dependent on you for small things they should probably handle themselves. That can indicate they don't grasp the underlying principles.
And sometimes people hide it, right? Pride or fear.
Definitely. So you also look for patterns, project delays, frequent mistakes, or if someone just can't seem to grasp the bigger picture, how their work fits in.
Nonverbal cues again?
Absolutely. Furrowed brows, confused looks, avoiding eye contact. And one of the best ways to check, ask them to explain it back to you in their own words.
Yeah, that really reveals understanding.
Way better than just getting a yes or a nod. And remember, just repeating yourself might not work. You might need a different approach, visuals, analogies, other examples. Ultimately, building trust is key, so people feel safe saying, hang on, I don't get it.
Which leads right into that final crucial point.
Yeah.
Silence doesn't mean they understand.
Oh, it's such a dangerous assumption, interpreting no questions as meaning everyone's on board. There are so many reasons people stay quiet even when confused.
Like what?
Hesitation, fear of speaking up, cultural norms about not questioning authority. Maybe they don't even know what to ask. Or they worry asking makes them look incompetent. Sometimes silence just means your explanation wasn't clear enough in the first place.
So we need to be more proactive.
Exactly. Use proactive questioning. Don't just rely on people volunteering confusion. Be especially mindful of this in remote settings where you miss cues. Sometimes silence is even deliberate, hiding confusion. Especially if the environment feels strict or intimidating, or if the topic is super complex. Don't let silence go unchecked. Actively verify understanding.
Okay, so bringing this all together, how do we really take these lessons from parenting, these insights, and consciously use them at work in our leadership?
Well, it's about seeing those direct, powerful connections. Skills you hone as a parent, patience, empathy, giving specific constructive feedback. Those are pure gold in workplace leadership.
Right.
Guiding a child's growth. It's so similar to mentoring employees. Incremental steps, positive reinforcement, understanding a child's emotions. That translates directly to handling employee stress with empathy. Teaching rules, same as setting workplace expectations and explaining the why to encourage autonomy.
Spotting talents, learning from mistakes. It all maps across.
Absolutely. Recognizing kids' unique talents is like leveraging team members' individual strengths. Learning from failure, crucial in parenting, crucial for framing workplace errors as growth opportunities. Patience, consistency, specific feedback, vital in both roles for long-term development, for building trust. A nurturing home environment can genuinely inspire a more supportive, collaborative workplace.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've really explored how these fundamental ideas about communication and learning, the kind you see so clearly with parents and kids, can have this, well, surprisingly big impact on how we interact and lead at work. We've hit on questioning assumptions, seeing people as learners, really explaining the why, and using feedback effectively.
Yeah, what's really key to take away is that great communication isn't just about sending information out. It's about actively building real understanding, creating an environment where people can keep learning and growing.
Definitely. And on that note, here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on. Think about a recent time, work or personal life, where maybe there was a misunderstanding, communication felt a bit off.
Yeah.
Try looking back at it through this lens we've been discussing. Could you have maybe approached it more with that blank slate idea? Would explaining the background, the why, more thoroughly have possibly changed the outcome? Maybe consciously trying some of these principles could make a real difference next time. We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable stuff to think about.
Yeah, lots to consider.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives, exploring how we understand ourselves and each other. Thanks for joining us.